Just saw Civil War and it was incredible. Possibly my favorite Marvel movie. Oh, it's right up there in the top 2 or 3 of any superhero movie. First of all, the Spider-Man stuff was just the right amount of time. I hope you stayed for the credits, the after credits scene. It was the right amount of Spider-Man. But what also really impressed me was freaking Giant Man. First, when he took the shield from Spider-Man, Ant-Man, he flipped. That was awesome. And then he screwed up Stark's armor. But those Giant Man scenes were like right out of some classic movies or classic games when he was freaking huge. I mean that was like, wow, that really impressed me because we never saw any clips of Giant Man on screen. Now I want that figure really bad to complete. I mean, that was impressive. The Russos can direct any comic book movie they want. They did better than Whedon, and they did better than Zack Snyder, in my opinion. They are the masters. That thing with the Falcon and that Red Wing, because in the comics, it's a real bird, Red Wing, and they made it like a drone. That was spectacular. And Crossbones blowing up was a total surprise. In the original Civil War comics, a school blew up, and I liked how they switched it around and Crossbones blew himself up, but accidentally with the civilians. The one thing that I really liked and 100% surprised me was we thought Iron Man would be the bad guy and Captain America the good guy. But if you look at the film, Iron Man is not a bad guy. He's a good guy in this. For real, you know, he could have told Ross about what was going on. At first I thought we were going to miss Ross, that he only had one scene in the beginning, but thankfully we saw more of him. We didn't find out what that red vial was. I was thinking maybe it's the Red Hulk formula, just because it's red. So that's a factor they could play up in the future. I liked Crossbones' weapons, even though it's not in the comics. Those gears, whatever the hell he had, looked pretty cool. We need an action figure, man, at that. But yeah, I was surprised he blew up. I was totally surprised with that and how he looked under the helmet. What really was cool was, you know, for me it was everything about, it was really heroes confronting each other and not really about, you notice there was no villain in the super costume. Zemo was bad, but even he had a motive, but he wasn't like a guy, you know, like there was some villain in a super costume doing everything. Well, other than Crossbones, right? I like the Russos' take on action sequences. How they direct action is so, in my opinion, comic booky, yet it's also real world physics. Like when Captain America, Spider-Man said, "Your shield defies physics." That was kind of funny. But you know, they handle the fighting, the director vision of it. I like Spider-Man's costume, even though it was a little different. Thankfully, it was not drastically different. It was just a couple of lines and a couple of small changes, but it still stayed true to the comics that we know. The eyes were CG though, or they were at some point. I liked the Iron Man suits, the Cap costumes. War Machine finally, to me, War Machine finally arrived, and he gets injured, right? In other movies, he never seemed to solidify the role, because the guy in the first Iron Man did such a great job in the role. I thought in this one, we finally saw enough screen time that he solidified the role of War Machine, to me, you know. I hope the audio is coming in okay. So he finally did cool with War Machine, and he pulled out the baton thing. I liked the Spidey Cap stuff. That was awesome. 2 New Yorkers, and the way Cap was fighting Spidey and Spidey was countering him. And it ended kind of like on a draw, and he said like, "You have a good heart, kid." I mean, that was like perfect like mentor to student type of thing. I mean, that was really cool. I liked the story. You know, it was very, as I said, Iron Man is not the bad guy, thankfully. You know, I thought they were going to make Cap the good guy and Iron Man the bad guy. And the truth is, when Iron Man said, "Oh, the Winter Soldier, you know, he killed the parents and he just wants revenge," I mean, totally justified. I mean, I don't think anyone could have blamed Iron Man in the heat of passion there for wanting to just kill the Winter Soldier. I mean, just straight up. And so I don't think you could say Iron Man was the bad guy in that scene. I don't think anyone could say that. And we found out what finally, I knew the Winter Soldier. We knew he wasn't responsible for that explosion. So that was explained well. The Black Panther was handled well also. The Russos did a great job on Spidey and the Panther. They made him legit. In the comics, his costume is cloth, but the idea that it's this metal vibranium, his costume, you know, it's just improved ideas upon the comics. The Russos took the comics and improved ideas upon it. The Giant Man, who was a goofy character in the comics, was finally had like some legit heat. He had some legit impressiveness. I thought that was played well. The Panther's origin, why he would be angry. Zemo would be a prisoner. So maybe in the future he gets the mask. As you know, he wears a mask. And I thought we were going to see that plot about the 4 or 5 other Winter Soldiers. And then I was surprised that they were killed off. I thought he was going to use them to kind of like take over the world or some type of thing like that. So that was a twist I didn't expect. They were like cryo-frozen but still alive, and then that was different. You know, the funny thing is, even though we're against globalism, and Cap did have a point that we shouldn't be under a UN charter because then the UN is the boss of us. Iron Man kind of has a point, you know. Yeah, the UN kind of stinks. We don't want to be in it. But, you know, if it can help save lives and people are scared, we have to join this UN thing, right? But then you saw what happens at the end of the UN when Hawkeye and Falcon and everyone's a prisoner. That's like the UN. That's what's going to happen. You're going to be a prisoner. They're not going to treat you fairly. They were talking about, and they didn't get into it because it probably would have got too boring, but they did give it enough information. I'm surprised Kevin Feige didn't overrule it when they were talking about, Cap was like, you know, if we join this UN, we're going to be under them, and we could do it ourselves. But then General Ross and Iron Man had a point that you operate in any country you want, you just go there without permission. This is like against international sanctions, and you got like 170 countries that are going to sponsor you. If you join, it's like you're screwed. Either way, you could see why the Winter Soldier, you know, most of the community, the public thinks he's the bad guy. They don't know about the setup. That's not public knowledge yet. And I was surprised with the mind programming. It kind of makes sense. And then that was a good battle. You know, I guess Cap doesn't want him a prisoner for life or killed, which is what's going to happen to him, especially with Iron Man. And it did break up the team. I mean, Iron Man was not the bad guy. We got to see Stan Lee. Very cool. And he had a relevant part in the scene. Tony Stark was cool. His best performance outside of Iron Man 1 and Avengers 1. Cap was kind of the bad guy, even though he doesn't want to join the UN. And I understand why. He was so loyal to his friend, it cost him everything else, you know. And it's interesting, where does Cap go for here? And you can't blame Iron Man. I think that was well done. For a minute, I thought he was going to chop Iron Man's head off with the shield. He wasn't that bloodthirsty. I like the idea in battle of Stark's armor getting injured, so he can't fly right, or some of his weapons go off. It makes him more vulnerable. It makes him more human than invincible. This video is going on a bit, so I think I'll enjoy this on replay. I'll get the Blu-ray when it's out. This is one of those movies that if it's on TV, as I said, there are some movies you like that you could keep playing on the background of your TV. This is one of them. Marvel Studios or Disney got nothing to be ashamed of. They just did awesome. The Russos, I don't know if Infinity War 1 or 2 could top this, because this is a lot to do. Even if it doesn't succeed, I tip my hat to them to making 2 movies I enjoyed. They got Spidey right. Whatever happens in the Spidey solo movies, they got Spidey right in this film. Enjoyed it more than I thought. Good story, even though it was just a character-driven piece. It was not about the villains, which is a total surprise. Maybe the first hero movie when there was no real villains. But I really enjoyed this film, and that's it. Talk to you later, and thanks for watching.